I often get asked this question: is Christianity rational? Does Christianity make sense of the world that we live in? And today I want to recommend a source to you as we get into these questions of, does Christianity make sense of the world that we live in? When it comes to defending the Christian faith, there's kind of been a shift in apologetics. For a long time, we saw some of the classical arguments, right? We saw the ontological argument, the cosmological argument, the teleological argument. We saw defenses of the resurrection and the evidence for it. And we saw those kind of played out on debate stages and in speeches, right? And those trickled down into the public square where Christians were using those kind of in common language as they would interact with people. And those were really helpful. But as apologetics has advanced, there's kind of been this transition, especially just as we've engaged in the culture more and we enter more and more into this secular age, where there's been this question of, well, what does Christianity say about the biggest questions in life? How does Christianity answer the questions of morality, the questions of meaning, the questions of purpose, the questions of destiny? And these are the questions ultimately that most humans wrestle with, that most humans have wrestled with throughout all of time. Where did we come from? What is the point of my life? What's the point of your life? And people have wrestled with these questions, and they will continue to wrestle with these questions. And I think that we have to be ready to provide an answer to those types of questions. And if we're not, what will happen is we'll see people go to other things for answers. And they're doing this already, right? They go to hedonism. They go to self-pleasure, to have as much of the things of the world, to have as much sex, to have as much items, to have as much fun, whatever it may be, right? They just kind of inoculate themselves with things of the world to fill in the void. And oftentimes they're doing it so they don't have to think about these big questions. And the secular age just kind of says, yeah, do that so you don't have to worry about these big questions in life. I think that that's kind of where we're at as a world. And as Christians, we need to be ready to provide an answer to these questions. And we need to be ready to ask these big questions. Hey, what do you think about the purpose of life? What do you think about your own purpose for life? What do you think about the meaning of all of this? Where do you think all of this came from? What about morality? Do you think that there is an objective good? We need to be ready to engage those types of questions in a secular age that is kind of avoiding them. The secular age, not only has it kind of ignored Christianity in this moment, but it's really kind of made fun of it. It says that Christianity can't offer answers to any of the big questions in life. Really, there may not even be any questions big answers to the big questions in life. So let's just enjoy life, be drunk, be merry, and enjoy life, for tomorrow we die. In fact, that's actually what Paul says, right? That if the resurrection didn't happen, what you should do is eat, drink, for tomorrow we die. And so when we look at the secular age and we see people just day in and day out just living for the things of the age, we shouldn't be too surprised. That does make sense, for if all we have is today and tomorrow we die, then that is how you should live. But if there is more to life, if there is more to this existence than 60, 70, 80, 90, maybe 100 years, and there is a life after this, there is eternal life, then what we do does matter. Then we should be prepared to tell people about the hope that they could have. We should be ready to tell people that there is hope beyond life, that there is purpose to life, that there is meaning, that there is a reason they were made, that there's a creator who wants to know them, who has sent his son to die for them, that they could have life everlasting. And we get to have those conversations, and when we do get to have them, we should be ready to point out to the reality that Christianity is rational, that Christianity makes sense, and that it makes sense of the biggest questions in life, from suffering to enjoyment and fulfillment, from what is the purpose of life to just as simple as, where does good come from? Where does human dignity come from? We need to be ready to defend those questions and show that Christianity does offer real answers to them. Russell Brand has made this, he's at a conversion recently, and, I like listening to some of the stuff he has to say, because he talks about the hedonistic lifestyle that he lived, just going from one thing after the other, from drugs to women, and it's so fascinating to listen to him talk, because he talks about how these things left him so unsatisfied. Yet when he does come to Christ, how Christ makes sense in looking back on all of those things, how he was looking for something, but when he comes to Christ, it just seems like, it all makes sense. The thing I was truly looking for was found right here. I'm currently working through St. Augustine's Confessions, and in the first chapter of Book 1, he makes the comment that the rest that all humanity is looking for is found in God, that he's the rest for the restless. We could just sit in that. God is the rest for the restless. Christianity does make sense in the world because of what he offers us. He offers us answers to the real questions that we are asking. And today what I want to do is introduce you to a book by an apologist named Simon Edwards. It's called The Sanity of Belief, Why Faith Makes Sense. Simon Edwards is an apologist. He was formerly a lawyer, and so he defends the Christian faith in this book by showing that Christianity works both in the head and in the heart, that Christianity has an outpouring result that answers the biggest questions in life. I think this is a book for the Christian and the non-Christian, helping the Christian be prepared to answer the biggest questions in life, and helping the non-Christian know that Christianity is rational, that Christianity does make sense, that the God of the universe, the God who created the world, does provide rest for the restless, who is longing for answers, who longs to know why they were made, who longs to understand why there is good in the midst of so much bad, or how there could be good if there is so much bad. And so Edwards shows that faith makes sense in the secular world that we live in, and the world that we live in, and provides answers in two ways. And this book is kind of broke up into these two ways. He breaks it down first by focusing on the things that matter. And so there's 6 chapters, and he focuses on the matter of meaning, the matter of value, the matter of goodness, the matter of truth, the matter of love, and the matter of suffering. And across the board, he's working through how as humans we experience the fullness of desiring meaning, desiring value and human dignity, desiring love. We all experience love. We desire to be loved, We experience suffering. We see suffering. We know suffering is wrong. We know something's wrong there with that. We see goodness. We can even experience goodness. We know there is an intrinsic goodness. So where does all of that come from? What is a part of all of that? Where is that in us? And then he transitioned to weighing the evidence. And so all of the first section is helping us understand that Christianity makes sense of those things. It helps lay out the fact that that's real. It's a good thing that you're seeing those things in the world, and that's not a bad thing that you're asking questions about them, and that Christianity offers answers to them. And then he lays out weighing the evidence to just kind of put the icing on the cake for why Christianity really is the answer to life's biggest questions. And he focuses on Christianity being a thinking faith, and that the evidence around us for the universe points to the fact that there is a creator, and that creator is the God of the Bible. And he points to the evidence within us, and then he points to the evidence of history in the person of Jesus Christ. In this book, he's challenging what a non-Christian perspective brings as well, and how the skeptical or secular world doesn't provide answers to the life's biggest questions. And that at the end of the day, the secular beliefs and their logical conclusions really lead you to not just a pessimistic worldview, but a nihilistic worldview. a world without hope, a world that doesn't answer any of life's biggest questions concerning human dignity, value, of morality, of meaning, of purpose. And so what I love that Edwards does here is that he points to the fact that the Christian faith really does offer hope in the midst of a world that says there probably isn't any. In Yuval Harari's book, it's very easy. Yuval Harari's book, Homo Sapiens, or Sapiens, at the end of it, when you come to the end of it, it'd be very easy to read that book and go, there's kind of no point to the existence of life. I should just live my life how I want to live it, be as happy as I can, consume as much as I can, and that'll be it. In the Sanity of Belief, Simon Edwards points out the fact that if Christianity is true, there's a point to not just life, but there's a point to every single moment of your life, because there is an everlasting life. And he offers a hope in the midst of all of the suffering and hardship of life by showing us that faith really does make sense. As I was just kind of flipping through this, I was just reminded of what Anselm says in his work, the Proslogion, that as Christians we should have a faith that is seeking understanding. Edwards brings an intellectualism to Christianity, and I think this is something that as Christians we need to be focused on. We need to care more about an intellectual faith. We're not fools. We don't have just this ignorant faith, but we're a people who believe in a God who's given us a book, who's the eternal Logos himself. And we want to be a people who understand the world we live in, who understand him, who understand the transcendent and the divine, who seek to know him intimately. And we want to have a faith that is seeking understanding. And a part of that means we read books like this one, like Simon Edwards' The Sanity of Belief. Not only that we would know how to defend the faith, but to encourage others to wrestle with God, that they would know him, that they would think seriously about the fact that the world doesn't make a whole lot of sense if there isn't a personal creator behind it, a divine creator behind it. And so some things I like about this book, other than all that I've laid out before you, Edwards kind of lets you in on his story. So he's kind of telling his story. It's very personal. It's like you're having a conversation with him. He's a very easy reader to follow, so it's very accessible. And so that's one of the reasons I like it. Another reason, I think that if you're a Christian, it'd be helpful. I think you'd be able to transfer much of this writing, much of this work and what you read here into your daily conversations and your engagements and gospel conversations as you do apologetics and seeking to engage the lost. I also think that if you're not a Christian and you're curious about Christianity, that you would maybe find some good answers to the questions you're asking. I said at the beginning that, apologetics works, they're so broad, but this is a good apologetics work because it just kind of exposes you that Christianity is very in touch with the fact that it is rational, that it offers real questions to it offers real answers to the real questions of life. And so if you're a skeptic who's asking questions, you're not a cynic, but you're a skeptic, this is a book for you. Edwards wants you to pick up this book because he's challenging you to ask questions of the Christian faith, because he believes the Christian faith offers those answers. And so I like that. At the end of the day, he challenges the idea in this book that faith and rational thought are in contradiction with one another. And I think that as Christians, we also need to be challenging that secular idea. Secularism wants us to think that Christianity and rational thinking are in contradiction with one another. And we have to be ready to say, no, they are not. One other thing I really like about this book is that it shows that as Christians, that Christianity is the only worldview ultimately that makes sense of the things that we experience in this world. It makes sense of the suffering that we see. It makes sense of the morality that we desire inherently within us. It makes sense of the questions of purpose that we have. It makes sense of who we are as individuals who have a longing for more. It answers the questions of truth, of dignity, of justice. And Edwards points all of that out in this book, and he points to how all of those things come from a creator God who has sent his son to die for sinners to be reconciled to himself. And so I really appreciate this book. I think you should pick up a copy of it. I have seen how this book has helped people and be put at ease. I've seen this book answer a lot of questions for non-Christians about whether or not Christianity is rational. So I encourage you to pick up a copy of Simon Edwards' The Sanity of Belief, Why Faith Makes Sense.